I'm going to
Okay,
press go live on Facebook.
All right, I'm gonna hide my
got it.
picture here.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, the live video is starting, it says. There's always this like little minute of delay where we say, okay, we're live. Hello, friends. Welcome to Dulcimoon Talk number 14. I'm Erin Mae, and I am here today with Pat Clark, which I'm very excited about because Pat is the person behind the Send in the Music
Oh,
community and jams, which have been going on as an online jam since the pandemic started in 2020,
it,
and it's special and magic.
oh, thank you, Aaron. We think of it that way too. All of the people involved in it think of it as special and magic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I I know because periodically I talk to some of the people involved and they just gush about how much joy and life and light Send in the Music has brought to their lives over the last 3 years now.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we like to kind of start with where where did your dulcimer journey start? How did you get into music and who were there women who were influential in that journey and path for you?
So I did not start my music career until I finished college. I was one of six kids. None of us had any musical training of any kind. We didn't touch an instrument. But I graduated from college in 1969, and that was in the midst of the folk music. Everyone was playing the guitar. And I had a girlfriend whose name was Carol, who played the guitar and sang beautifully. And she said, I can teach you to play. And she did get me started, but she could not teach me to sing because I just do not have that capacity. I mean, it was like very clear. And so from learning to play with her, I went on to take classical guitar lessons, which
Wow.
was wonderful for me because the guitar held the melody when you
Right.
play classical guitar, and it was enormously satisfying to me to be able to play and to be able to play some of those songs that she was singing with. It was it was just a joy, and I found my joy in music from there on. So that was, I probably played for 40, I mean, I'm 75 years old, so I've played for a long time, and I found the dulcimer 13 years ago.
Wow.
My husband and a friend of ours had built dulcimers for us while we were on vacation. And I brought it home and hung it on my wall, not knowing how to play it, but
Right.
thinking it's got strings, I can do this.
That's pretty. Okay.
Yeah. And my neighbor saw it hanging on the wall and said, there are a few of us that are going to learn to play dulcimer. Would you like to join us? And so there were about five of us, all women, and we decided we were going to learn to play dulcimer. And one Saturday, we packed into a car and we drove over to Lakeland. Suze Grandy, who is now Suze, she was Suze Chapman at the time, had a workshop going with Tull Glazner. And the five of us show up with our dulcimers, and none of them were tuned. And my particular dulcimer that was built by my husband, the strings were wrong, the bridge was cut wrong. They said, you can't play this instrument, you're
Oh
going to need a
no.
new instrument.
Oh,
But they shared instruments with us. They had us strumming. We learned which string was the melody string. I mean, I want to say it was basic. That's where we started.
hmm.
From there, we played every Saturday. Every Saturday for 10 full years, we met on Saturdays. We learned together, and the group grew. It became more than just the five of us. And we realized that we had lots of limitations musically. We had trouble playing together. We had trouble playing in time. We had trouble reading the tab. There were a lot of things that happened. And Sean McCurdy, I don't know if you know who Sean is. Sean lived in our vicinity, and she joined our group, and she is responsible for getting us to play together and getting us to play on time. Remember one Saturday, she had us moving our feet from side to side with the beat to keep on the beat. I mean,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but Florida is not a dulcimer wasteland. Florida is the place that people come in the wintertime, and all of the major teachers come to Florida at some point in the winter. And we had a string of workshops with really, really incredible people. We really got a lot of exposure and a lot of playing time, and we improved because of that, because you had a group and the group was motivating, extremely
Right.
motivating.
You have
And
that consistency and
yeah,
accountability and
yeah, and you play together and you talk together and you travel together. We went to Dulcimer U together. I mean, there were just a lot of things that were really good about it. But I'm going to tell you that the people who were the most instrumental in my dulcimer playing were the finger pickers. Nina Zanetti, Linda Brockington, Janita Baker, Elaine Conger. I mean, I was drawn, of course, to that music because that's where the melody was, and I did not have it to sing. You know, I just don't. And I love the words to some of these songs. They are just so wonderful. But that's not my skill. My skill is finger picking, and to this day it still is finger picking. It's where my love is, and that's what I love to do. And the dulcimer is a beautiful instrument for that.
right. Oh, and it
Amazing.
makes sense that coming from a classical guitar background that finger picking
Yes, yeah,
quite
that
well.
that would be that would be the thing. I have just a couple of notes. Well, so then what I was going to say is I'm a retired psychologist, and I decided that I wanted to do more with my music, and I went and completed the program, the Music in Healing and Transition program,
Uh-huh.
MHTP, and became a certified music practitioner and started to volunteer in hospice and hospitals. And it was really hard to start with because even though hospitals had protocols for pet therapy, in our
Uh-huh.
area, they did not have protocols for musicians. And
Hmm.
so it was very, they didn't know what to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I did find a hospice that's local, and I still volunteer for them, and it has been a wonderful thing. But doing that, I looked around our group of dulcimer players, and I said, there are people here who could be helping others. The main problems in our age group are isolation and not having companionship and not being interested outside of your home. And I thought, well, maybe we could go into homes. And we were in the beginning starting to advertise that we were sending the music and we could send music into a hospital or into a home. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And overnight, everything that we were doing, everything that I was doing, everything that we were doing volunteering, all of our jams together, everything stopped. It just
Right.
stopped overnight. And I knew that we were in trouble with my psychology background unless we filled that space pretty quickly. So I've had
Right.
lots of good ideas in my lifetime that I did not take action on. But this was one that I said, this has to happen. It has to happen now. So I learned to Zoom. Now, this is going to sound, Zoom. I learned to Zoom in a week, and I didn't learn to Zoom in a week, but I learned the details of it, and we started a jam on Saturday because that was the day that we were used to meeting. And the
Yeah.
group that I had in mind was the group that I played with. It was not, I wasn't thinking the wider picture or the wider world. I was thinking about the group that I played with. So we said Saturday, and I know it had to be consistent, had to be something they could count on, it had to be free because I wanted no obstacles for people participating.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, my group was not the group that embraced it, but the wider dulcimer community embraced it. And I ended up with people joining me and my Send in the Music team, Lori Alsobrook, Carol Crocker, Carolyn Brzezinski. There were just people that came and played with us, and I needed them because
Yeah.
I am going to tell you, I cannot do the tech and lead the songs at the same time. There's a guy in England who can do that, Jeff Black, but I cannot do it. I just needed them to lead the songs, and our music has been really special because of them and other song leaders who step forward. You know, they're not always available, but it's a rotating group of a lot of people who feel committed to it, and it's lovely to have them.
Well, and I know from having some of my students who have become song leaders that it felt like a safe space for them to try to lead a song where they probably wouldn't have done that in a like they were very intimidated by in-person jams, very intimidated by being in the spotlight, like very intimidated by that. And then it's like, but I've become friends with these people and
Yes.
I'm beginning to feel a little more brave, and maybe I could lead one song and then pretty soon they're leading two or three songs for you. And
Well, the thing
that's
that's
amazing.
yes, but the thing that was challenging about that is usually when you're a new player, you don't want anyone to hear you. So playing in the big group or playing in your room by yourself is safe. But actually on Zoom, you're the only one playing. And yeah, we try to accommodate the spectrum of players from the new player to the most challenging music. And my song leaders have tabbed music just for sending the music. We stick with things that are not copyrighted, that are public domain. It's public domain music and original music. Lori Alsobrook has tabbed over 300 songs for us. There's a
Wow.
fellow in California, Dennis Harris, who has tabbed over 200 songs from us, all public domain, and he's put them all into the public domain. So there's this new music coming, and there's these skills. If you're new, just play the melody line, and then you see Cindy Farley, who I could not live without, who has gone from playing hesitantly to being a really strong player and really a great example for the growth that's taken place as a
Yeah,
result of sending the music.
that's right. I mean, to have created a space that feels really nurturing for people in a setting online where it can be really uncomfortable and intimidating because you have the layer of technology which is scary and hard and difficult and unfamiliar. Plus you have the layer of like when it's my turn, I'm the only one anyone hears. And it can, that's scary, but what you've managed to do in that group is create a very, very safe space for people to
Well,
play. I know, I mean, I haven't gotten to be there a lot of times because somehow my Saturdays always end up being
and
the full days. But whenever I'm there and whenever I've gotten to witness it, it it's so clear that this is a space where mistakes are fine and you just keep on going and everyone is cheering for each other and it's very, very positive and supportive.
Well, I really shoot for that. And even and I make mistakes all the time, but even when we make mistakes, we say, oh, there's something to be learned here. It's how to keep going or how to pick up where you left off or how to say, I'm going to start over again. I
Yeah,
mean, all of those things are okay. And it's really that for that reason, it's really nice. We have still, this is 3 years we're into this. We have between 70 and 90 people every week still signing in to the jam. And what I realize is that we have become their Dulcimer community. We're the place where they come to play every Saturday. It's no longer a face to face. It's these are the people who are coming here, and they are coming from all over the world.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that is amazing to me. Mostly the United States, all parts of the United States and Canada. But I have a list here, let me see, of the countries in the last year that have signed into our jam. And I'm just going to read it to you. The US, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Nicaragua, Austria, Italy, Malaysia, Pakistan, Egypt, Poland, Germany, Sweden, Thailand, New Zealand, China, Turkey, Russia, India, Argentina, Singapore, Ireland, and Chechnya.
Wow.
Wow. It's like, oh my
If you had
goodness.
asked me if anyone in most of those countries even knew what a dulcimer was, I would have said, nope, there's no one.
Well, and I don't know how the word spread that way. The only place that we have advertised is on Facebook. And I send out a message every week about what our theme is, because we have a
Yeah.
theme every week that makes us very creative, pulling together creative music. So it's always kind of what's going on here. And we have a mystery guest every week. And you have been our mystery guest
I have been
recently,
a mystery
but
guest, yes.
but we've had over 120 mystery guests.
Wow.
And it was Larry and Elaine Conger who started that because my very first jam, they said, we'll come. And they showed up, and everybody was so excited about them giving their time to us that I started asking people to come as a mystery guest. And I call it a mystery guest because I don't let people know who it is. And that's some of the draw as well.
Yeah.
And it is between the theme and the mystery guest, it is an exciting way to spend a Saturday afternoon for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I mean, you had the experience of being in a place where there were other people, and you sort of had the experience
yes.
of connecting with other people right away and the opportunity for workshops. I live in Kansas, and I lived 3 hours from any other dulcimer player as a kid, at least. Like, my parents were amazing because when I was a kid, they drove me 3 hours each
Oh my.
way to get a dulcimer lesson because that was the next closest dulcimer player that we knew of. So the fact that a lot of dulcimer players, we're actually pretty isolated. It's several
Yes.
hours to get to another dulcimer player. You can just open up your computer and be with people
And
who are sharing in this.
faces that you recognize and voices that you recognize. And that's a pretty awesome thing. It's become a wonderful tool for learning and for not feeling so isolated. I mean, I hear from people in Wisconsin, I don't have anybody to play with. There's a gal in New York City, she has nobody to play with. You think about it, and yeah, they are really, really keen on what we're doing. And I've had the chance to meet some of the people that I've only seen online. Recently, we had a festival in Mount Dora, and Jan and Hamish Cormie from Wales flew over to the United States. We picked them up. My husband and I picked them up at the airport. They stayed with us for a few days. We took them to the Mount Dora Festival. They rented a camper and did some of the South Florida stuff. They made it a vacation, but
Yeah.
I actually met them in person and feel like I have these friends now in Wales, face to face. It's just incredible. And there were people who came to Mount Dora who I had only seen online, who, they came and said, well, and when they're wearing their shirts, they're sending the music shirts, so
Yes,
we
yes.
can recognize each other. It's delightful. It's like being part of a family is how it
Yeah,
feels.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, the this kind of technology and interaction with Zoom and community centric things is so new that I don't think we know really how it's impacting our lives, but I definitely feel like I've some of my best friends right now are people that I only see on the internet, but we have that connection
Yes,
and we see
yeah.
each other's faces and we meet regularly and consistently, and that's available to me only because of the technology. It's like I can find my people even if they're not close geographically.
So there were a couple of things that happened. Like I know the Congers, when they do workshops now, they do hybrids. They do in person and online at the same time, which has to be an art to manage. And Chuck Mosley, when he did the Black Mountain Festival, he put all of those concerts online for us. And I think the key for that was he didn't charge anything to attend. And so a lot of people got hooked on they realized they would pay for it, but I don't think that's where you can start. I think that it has to be accessible to everybody. And then there are a whole group of people who, I have a woman living in a nursing home. There was a woman who attended, and you could see that she was on oxygen. There are people that are not out and about,
That's right.
caretakers for their parents. They have animals that they don't want to leave. They are not going to travel, but all of a sudden there is quarantine. And there are all these magical things. Your class is online. There are all these magical things that they can choose from, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Dulcimoon Festival was kind of born out of watching what was happening in online spaces and recognizing that there was space for another event that would be kind of a focused thing, that
Uh-huh.
we wanted to try to somehow include the high quality education that Quarantine is offering with the community feel and not just have class, 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 but how do we
Right.
also have spaces for that connection with one another? And it's an ongoing sort of, we get to try things. That's where we're at in this space. Nobody knows exactly what to do or
Mhm.
how it's going to work. We're in the experimental phase of it, but I think the values of building up the community and spotlighting women who are involved in all the things in the forefront but also behind the scenes. We were talking before we started the conversation that like it's really important to us to make sure that we're spotlighting women like you who don't feel like you're the one who's like at the forefront. You're not the teacher performer, but you are glue for our community, for sure.
Yeah.
And your vision for I'm just gonna create something that we do consistently. Um, I don't know, how many weekends have you not had a jam? Like
Well,
six?
the only time, probably in that, yeah, for the quarantunes, we don't have a jam on
Uh-huh.
quarantunes. We've gone to quarantune sign.
Yeah.
And for Mount Dora actually came the weekend after quarantune. So for the first time in 3 years, last month we missed 2 weekends in a row. And I was like, I don't like doing this because people count on it. But they were all very gracious and they came back and they were glad to see us and we were able to pick up. But
Yeah.
we're 3 years into it and I think people can tolerate that. When you're starting, I don't think they can. They want to count on you.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of funny, Erin, is we sign on. I sign on at 12:45. Our jam starts at 2. And we do sound checks every week because it all changes and we want to
Yes.
make sure that our sound is good. And people sign on at 12:45 just to sit in the background and listen to us chit chat about this and that and what sounds good and what doesn't sound good, and some of them have said they have online little meetings and they've learned a lot from watching us troubleshoot you
Yeah.
know Yeah, so
Uh-huh.
that was really amazing. And
Right. I remember in those early days, I was one of the people who had already used Zoom a little bit before the pandemic was like, and now everyone is using
yeah,
Zoom.
yeah.
And it was just like, what can we do to help people not be so worried about the technology? Like, what are the tools we can give to people and how can we simplify as much as possible? Like, what's the simplest way for people to enter in and um that training on technology at the same time as we're creating the musical spaces continues, I think, to be really important.
Absolutely, because I just a week ago I was showing people how to update their Zoom. You don't know that you have to the minor upgrades you have to do, or you have to set it that it'll do automatically, or it won't. And
Right.
so, and how do you explain that? Well, I share my screen and I show the little dot, and here's the pull down menu, and
Right.
and you want to do that before you sign on because it will bump you off if you're on. Well,
Yes,
and
yes.
Erin, we had that problem with a hacker. And
Yeah.
I called you and said, what do we do? I mean, we had to shut down that meeting because
Yeah.
it was disturbing to everybody. And we'd been on 2 years when that happened. So
Right. We all kind of thought we're past the point of Zoom bombing and
yes, and it was really one of those things where I had to go back to the drawing board and learn how to handle that so that it wouldn't be disturbing to people, you
right.
know. But you were a great help to us then.
Yeah, I mean, it was good for me to go back and say, okay, well, what are all the security features that I maybe hadn't been keeping up with? Because, that first 6 months, I like read every Zoom tutorial that came out and I was like really on top of every Zoom update. And then you kind of go, well, I think I'm pretty sure I know how this all works now. And then they do updates and then something changes
So
again and
a
it's
funny story, it's funny in hindsight only, is that when we started, we had one weekend where over 100 people tried to sign on. And your original contract is only for 100 people, and then it stops letting people in. So
right.
I went and actually somebody sponsored an upgrade so I could have more than 100 people come in. They paid for that for a year. And
Wow.
I went and signed up for it, and the next weekend I didn't have access to it. They were locking people out also because you had to go and assign that benefit to somebody on your contract. You had to check a box. And I put in a help thing to Zoom, and I did not hear from them for 4 months. But I
Wow.
figured out what the problem was by going on the forum. And okay,
Uh-huh.
so about 3 weeks after that, Rick Thumb had a jam, a concert where people were not allowed in, and he didn't know why. And he said, "I'll do it again tomorrow to make up for not getting in today." And I knew as soon as he said that what the problem was. So I called him up. I said, "Rick, let me talk you through checking this box and
Yeah.
letting people get in." And it was like, if you didn't know that, you would be paying for benefits. When they finally contacted me, I said I went 4 weeks without being able to let people in, and I was paying for it. So I really want you to reimburse that, which they did. They were good once you got a hold of them, but we were just the little guys. We
Yeah.
were the one person team, and there were companies with thousands of people that were trying to make it work at that time. So yeah, so that was a funny in hindsight, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So
So I wonder how you feel like your music and healing and transition instruction, the things you learned from that and the experiences you had going into nursing homes and hospice translated into what you're doing with Send in the Music now.
see, I think there's a core of me, the psychologist, the person who wants to help and wants to do something that's meaningful. That's always been a theme in my life. I mean, I as a psychologist, I went to Sri Lanka after the tsunami to work with kids there. I mean, I've always been a volunteer. It's in my blood. And in the music and healing program, you learn to play for different kinds of patients. You learn to play different kinds of music for different kinds of patients so that you're not just going in and guessing that this is something that will work for them. You know what you're doing. And I collect music specifically for hospice. I have a hospice set list, and I keep adding to it all the time. And I have had some of the most profound experiences in my life playing in hospice. Just one story was I went to play for a man, and his sister was in the room, and she said to me, "He can't hear." And she said, there's no reason for you to play, he can't hear. But his friend was there and signed to him, "Do you want music?" And he signed back, "Yes." And the friend signed, "What song would you like?" And he signed back, "Amazing Grace." So I moved as close as I could. I put my finger picks on. I mean, he was profoundly deaf. And I started to play. His sister sang, and his friend signed Amazing Grace. And the room was filled with music, and he was fixed on his sign language friend. It was just like you never know. I mean, you never know.
Wow.
It's just amazing, you
Yeah.
know. So, some of the most wonderful experiences. I when people are alone and I know that they're really close to the end of life, I will go and sit and play a certain kind of music and feel like I am giving them something. I know hearing is the last thing that goes, and it's someone's with them. You know, that's how I feel about it. So I really, it's a wonderful thing to do. It really is.
Yeah. My original plan for my life as a high school graduate going into college was actually to get a degree in music therapy. And I got waylaid and I ended up in different places. But that is definitely something I've done a lot of research, and I'm really, really passionate and interested in the way music somehow reaches beyond what words can ever do. it it's really, really incredible,
Yeah.
and we can't I always feel like every time I start to try to use words to describe it, I'm going to fail because it is like music is this thing, and I relate to you, like not feeling like the singing is the thing. I've worked a lot on singing because as I started working more with kids, I
Oh, yeah.
recognized that they responded so much more to singing. And so I was like, well, I got to figure out how to be a singer. But my initial experience with the dulcimer is that it was my voice. I was singing through my dulcimer, and that, like,
Yes.
instrumental music to me is really powerful. And yeah.
It is. And there's a lot of information available now about how powerful it is. And there is a movement afoot to put music in a lot of medical settings and to give it access to people. But what I learned in hospice is that they won't ask for it unless they experience it. So there are times when I have sat out in the hallway and played music, you know, and a family member would come out and say, I was wondering what that sound was. She said, the angels have arrived. You know, it's just like, so then it was, would you like me to play for your loved one? Of course, because now I've heard it and I know what it will do. You know, so, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. Playing in a dulcimer group, you know, you don't realize what a profound experience it's a social experience, it's an internal experience, a learning experience. It's good for your brain. I mean, there are just so many benefits to it. And I'm involved in a grant here in Florida. Music practitioners, people who have finished the same MHTP program, we've written a grant. There's a set of money that's available for, it's called penalties. There are penalties that nursing homes pay when they don't offer certain benefits to patients. And one of the big pushes is to use less medication. And so we wrote a grant to put music practitioner in nursing homes. And we actually have passed the first hurdle in Florida, and now it has to be funded. It's from a national fund, so we're waiting for that funding. But that's a
Wow.
pretty exciting thing to see
Yeah.
and to be able to offer. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
Okay, you must keep us posted on the
on
progress.
all of that, yes.
Yeah.
I have no idea what time it is. Is it time? Are we done?
Oh, yes, I
Oh,
think we are. Time just flies when we have these conversations. But DJ, I saw you just popped in. Did you have?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to say we had a lot of people who were very grateful to you, Pat,
oh,
for what you do and how the Saturdays are really important to them. Kelly Johnson says, this virtual thing is great for people like me who can't go in person. I love sending the music, my regular Saturday activity. You get to know each other and look for people. And Karen Kushel-Dotson says, I love sending the music so much. I try to watch and play along most Saturdays. Hate when I have to miss. Thank you for what you do, Pat.
Oh,
And I also wanted you to talk a little bit about the fact that you record this. How do people access it when it's recorded?
The recordings are on my website. You know, just where they go to register, they go to the jam page. There's a video page, and the videos are there for a whole year's worth of videos are there.
So
and
it's at sendinthemusic.com?
Sendinthemusic.com.
Just all one word, folks.
All one word, no spaces, no capital letters, sendinthemusic.com. And we are on Google search now, which is, yeah, so you'll be able to find us. The other thing is that we have no source of funding. You know, we are just operating out of our own deep pockets or out of donations, which the people have been wonderful. Lori Alsobrook put together a T-shirt drive last year that was really helpful. You know, but I feel very strongly that this is not something people should pay for, that it should be something that is openly available. So we will continue as long as we can.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So, and I thank you for giving me this time, and it's been delightful to talk about my experiences.
Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for making such a beautiful community and space for people, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy we're part of the same little Dulcimer community, Pat.
Oh, I thank you. Thanks, Erin, a bunch. So do we just sign off now?
Okay. Bye, friends. Thanks for being with us.
I'll see you Saturday.
Yay!
Okay.